hope you're still awake. That was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. You know, the advantages, I'll just focus on the advantage of being the last speaker of the day, is everybody has said everything you are going to say. But I'm going to give it to the twist. As somebody told me, oh, just add aromat. And in Kenya, when you say add aromat, does anybody know what that means? That's part of why I'm speaking today. Aromat is saying add your own flavor. So aromat is a very special flavor thing that you add in your food to make it much better. So I'm going to do that today. So thank you so much for staying in. My name is Shikoh Gitau, and I'm the CEO of Qhala. Qhala is a digital innovation lab that is headquartered in Nairobi, and our goal is to catalyze Africa's digital future. But I'm here because I'm a Christian. Today I'm going to be making fun of my dad and my son, who is in his first conference. Please clap for him. He's here somewhere. So thank you very much. Today I'm going to talk about discipling the algorithm. You've heard a lot about stuff today, and you are in this. But how do we move from artificial intelligence to the alter intelligence? And no, this is not a theological thing. This is how to practically increase, as he had just said, human dignity using artificial intelligence. So I'm going to call it chapters because I felt like this is a Christian thing and I need to move away from my tech work and do this. The Biblical moment, and this is inspired by my son. We are going through the Bible. I think we'll finish in 2050 because he has all these questions. He's somewhere there. And let's start with this. Oh, Henry is not here. I was going to make fun of Henry. Henry is one of our friends. On April Fool's Day, he talked about this partnership they have with Maltbot and faith-driven entrepreneurs. And I visualize this. There is a bot out there preaching the word of God at Maltbook, and hopefully it's true. But for real, when's the first time you encountered AI? It's in the Bible, according to my son. And you know, when you read the Bible, you just walk through it because you just want to go through the Bible. But then a boy, my son is always asking this question, but mommy, there's AI in the Bible, and this is actually, yeah, it is a city. But I want you to read this and pin it because I'm going to come back to it, yeah? That AI was first mentioned before the altar, and the first altar that we can hear about in the Bible was actually made before Abraham went to AI, or AI, that's what Kenyans say. But this is where my whole focus is going to be, in the Great Commission. You've heard about this the whole day. But I want to focus on one small part of it. Go ye into all the world and preach and make disciples. And sometimes we think, who are these disciples? I'm in the marketplace. I'm going to give you numbers because I'm a number person. The global south makes 80% of the world's population. And you heard a little bit about India previously. This is the number of people that you have not discipled to. This is what you should be worried about. Tell your friend or your neighbor, what's the average age of the United States of America? I think it's 49, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, you're pretty old in this continent. In Africa, it's 19 years. That was last year. This year, it's going to be, by the end of this year, it's going to be 17 years old. Average age of 1.5 billion people. And today we've heard a lot about languages. It's my favorite conversation. Anybody I've spoken to about today, I've spoken about language and why it's important. 600 in Latin America, 2,400 in Asia, 2,360 in Africa. And again, tell your neighbor. I'm a pastor's child, so I'll tell your neighbor all the time because that's what I was brought up doing, yeah? How many of those languages are ready for the AI age? We are going to come back to it. The parable of the gray dots. Africa has 1.5 billion people, 19 years old. Quick question, how many of them are on the internet? You can tell your neighbor. Pretty sure all of you have gotten it wrong. It's actually 40%. Not that bad, but not great. About 600 million Africans are using technology and on the internet. This is good news for that great commission I mentioned about. How many of them are on AI? About 100 million people are using AI. As a Kenyan, I have to mention this because I will not be allowed back into the country. Kenya is the highest user per capita of ChatGPT. So what I'm trying to tell you is we have a great potential. We are getting there. As builders, there is an opportunity for you. But this is where now discipling of algorithm means. Again, I said I'm a pastor's kid. I'm going to use my father as an example. He's been using me my whole entire life. And this is a verse he uses all the time when you ask him about church. And I use this verse because when I was coming here, after this I'm going off to DC because my friend saw a LinkedIn post, I'm coming to speak, and she called me and said, oh, I see you're going to a religious conference. I said, oh, no, I'm not actually going to a religious conference. I'm going to an AI conference for Christians. But everybody calls us religion. But what is true religion? Are we living by that name? Yeah? It's caring for the orphans and the widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. And that is the essence of my conversations with you today. Who are discipling the algorithm? Lift up your hand if you build models. Maybe 10% of us. Lift up your hand if you make decisions on policy, product as a leader. Look at you. Look around you, how many you are. That's a lot of you. Lift up your hand if you're a shaper of culture in the AI space. All of us should be doing this. Should be lifting our hands because we are in communities, we are in churches, and you're the person people call you when OpenAI releases the next model. Right? We build and we train these models. It is our mandate to be in malt book, training, and preaching the gospel. Our agents, at least, we should have an agent in there speaking about Christ. And I loved the speakers that came before me because they mentioned some of this. I want to introduce something about what we do at Qhala. We call it minimum viable intelligence. We said we're not fighting with OpenAI or Gemini or anybody out there who is fighting to get the artificial general intelligence. I've come to disdain that word because what does it actually mean? What does general intelligence mean? Satya, a few months ago, okay, maybe a year ago, said that AI is the truest form of humanity. And my question was, whose humanity, whose reality, whose life? Yeah? And why I'm asking this, because of everything you know AI, even with Kenya being the highest per capita user of ChatGPT, only 2% of our data sets, 2% of our data sets are used to train AI. Of the languages that were presented earlier today and the ones that are presented, less than 10% of African languages are actually attributed in the AI space. And for the ones that are there, they are highly misrepresented. For example, Maasai. How many of you know Maasai? You should know a Maasai. Somebody, okay. How many of you know all the runners from Kenya? I knew you should. Most of them are from these nomadic tribes, Maasai, Kalenjin, and stuff. And these languages are supposedly AI ready. We did a benchmark, that's why I love the first presentation today, to check how complete are they in representing their language. Maasai is represented by less than 1,000 words. 1,000 words. Kikuyu, which is a language I speak, and it is spoken by 10 to 15 million other Kenyans, is only represented by less than 10,000 words. How many words do you think are representing English? Give or take. Tell your neighbor, 1 million. You can see if you're saying English is 1 million words and this Ma language is less than 1,000 words, you're not fully representing these languages. So what we have positioned ourselves is we're not chasing this general intelligence. We are pursuing something called minimum viable intelligence, which is a model, which is a intelligence that is very focused for very, very specific uses because it will have the most impact and outcomes. And as it was mentioned, it's in health. I love that I had sent this presentation earlier, so I couldn't delete some of these things and I have to go through it. So it's health, education, livelihoods, and governance. And you've heard about that, so I will not emphasize on those spaces because they have the highest representation. But I wanted to bring back to the Great Commission. So being a tech person who loves data, I wanted to show where did Jesus emphasize his biggest effort when it came to his ministry. Of course, miracles is everything that we talk about Jesus. More than 50% of the miracles that Jesus did was in health. He healed people. Only 3 people were raised up from the dead. And one of them was one of his best friends. He had to do it. And when you think about it, what is the most emphasized that you do with your life? If you are a ministry in the marketplace, where do you put your most effort? And for us, as a Christian, you're saying, I'm casting demons, I'm praying, all of these things. But are you healing? Are you healing mentally, physically, and spiritually? And this is where I want to focus our work on. So I want to introduce to you Halima. Halima is a 24-year-old woman, lives in Garissa. Garissa is a very rural part of Kenya. She is pregnant. She experiences swollen feet, headaches, and blurred vision. If you're a woman, say amen. And everybody says, this is normal. You're pregnant. It is okay. But her instinct as a woman says, I need help. Halima is in rural Kenya, so there's no ambulance. None. Even if the one is there, it needs fuel and a driver, and none of them are existing at that point. So she needs a way to get to hospital. And she used something called boda boda, which is a motorcycle way of getting to hospital. And the healthcare facility, she needs support. She only gets a nurse who is not even trained on maternity care. I'll talk about AfriLingo, which is a product that we are building. And the goal is to ensure that we are providing the best of care to Halima and others in their local language. But we're not just doing it, we're doing it as a African language voice first LLM. We've had, during lunch and break, we had a good discussion around what does this actually mean? It does not mean voice to text to voice. It means voice to voice. It's hard because tokenization in Africa, we've done this research, costs 3x, sometimes 30x more to train. But we are building it. This is actual solutions that are already in the market. Atunzi is a care app that allows women to access support by just texting. And in whatever language, it will come back a solution in voice, video, or text. Moda Care is where every motorcycle driver is a first aid. You call them ER, I think here, or the ambulance people. And we have 250,000 of them. Each of them can provide care. Why? Because AI can walk you through the process of helping Halimas to stop bleeding on their way to hospital. AfriLingo, which is the model, is helping doctors in Kenya to be able to provide first world care, highly globalized care at the point of care in language. Why? More than 70% of medical error is from miscommunication, even here in the US. But language adds more complexity to that. Can you imagine a doctor in Kenya being able to speak to a friend of theirs here in the US, and they're able to communicate back to their patient in a language that they actually understand. In learning, I loved that learning was one of the key things. Children who are differently abled in Kenya are thrown out of school. They don't stay in school. Why? Because they are unable to actually support themselves. So we have built Ufahamu, which allows dyslexic kids to listen to learning in their own mother tongue. Because when a child learns in their mother tongue, their outcomes are way better than learning first in English and then the subject. I always tell people, I'm 5 years old. Why should I learn English and maths in English? I need to learn English first and then go and learn maths. I can't be being taught what are addition and subtraction in English while I'm still understanding what English is about, because that will happen to many of our kids. Now I want to introduce, I love the call to action that came just before I came, because it cued me to this. As ChatGPT will ask you, why does this matter? So I want to introduce you to something that we are doing, and we are announcing it here thanks to Biblica. We are working with Biblica on this one. It's the Damascus Movement. It is that moment that Paul sat and asked themselves, this knowledge I have, how am I going to apply it to Christ's kingdom? You as a modeler, a researcher, a culture shifter, what are you going to be doing? So we have the Damascus Movement, where we are going to help you embed into a university, a startup, ecosystem support, or a research fellow to help them build more of what we are building, the minimum viable intelligence that is actually going to shift things in a real sense. Stop chasing for that AGI, start chasing for impact. So we are having a dinner tomorrow here, somewhere. If you want to join, please join us. We'll send you all the details. That's the QR code. We welcome anybody who is interested in coming and joining this part of this movement. I'm going to give you 10 seconds because I have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can be able to join us. If you've not taken the QR code, please do find me earlier. And I have Tony. Tony is somewhere. I don't know where Tony is. There is Tony. Tony is in our board, but also is the ED for our lab. And then there's Sony, who is somewhere here. I'm not sure where Sony is. Sony is somewhere here, and my son. All of us will help you get into the dinner. But this is my conclusion. Remember I or AI. I love this verse. And this one was actually pointed to us by pastors. We are teaching pastors AI. And said, you know, the most powerful thing about AI is God showed himself strong by defeating AI. Point the spear in your hand towards AI, for I will hand the town over to you. We should not be afraid of this technology because God has handed this technology to us. Thank you very much. And God bless you.